He does have shoes on. He's a standardbred. He cannot put weight on his leg. He's a standardbred. He does have shoes on. We're just trying to get him comfortable, so.
Yeah, his heart rate's in the upper 80s. I'm gonna give some IV Banamine.
You wanna explain what that does to him?
Yeah, so this is pain and anti-inflammatory medication. His heart rate is very high and he's non-weight bearing lame, so he probably has a fracture and we don't want him to be in pain. So we're giving this right off the bat. And Tani, I've got a stall ready. I don't know if we can safely get him right there, but let's try to get him maybe in that closer one. So this is gonna kick in really quickly and provide him with some pain relief so we can do some diagnostics. 133.
Some of the draft horses are doing okay. And here Tony's working with the black one that had
I'm gonna be. Thank you.
When he holds it up, his leg kind of swings and dangles medially, so we probably have a full fracture. Something smells like infection. Is that the horse next to us?
I think, yeah, it smells really bad.
Yeah, he's got a really bad leg. Tani, I'm gonna try to touch this leg and just see. Do we have the thermal imaging camera? Yeah. So stifle is very hot. Looks like we may be looking at femur. But lower down in the leg is also swollen. So this poor guy came off the trailer. Tani and I snagged him immediately. He had pain and anti-inflammatory medications administered intravenously at a pretty high dose within 30 seconds. His intake heart rate was 88. So heart rate is one of our best indicators of pain. If you look at this horse's musculature, he's got severe atrophy on the right hind and hypertrophy on the left hind. So he's been compensating, and he's got his left hind leg turned in and tucked underneath. He's been compensating. That degree of atrophy and hypertrophy takes time. So this horse probably injured this leg at least months ago. So what we want to do with him is do some diagnostics so that we can give him the best chance of survival. If he has a femoral fracture or a hip fracture, that's unfortunately not survivable, but an abscess sometimes can manifest as non-weight bearing lameness. So we would never want to euthanize a horse that has a condition that we could treat. So because we have 19 other horses that just showed up, we want to make sure that every horse that arrives gets appropriate triage. We're going to let this guy have a drink, have some hay, let those pain medications kick in, and his response to those pain medications will help our vet team determine what his prognosis is. He does seem to be compensating well, but obviously if he's got an unstable fracture, we're not going to let him hang out here for forever. But this gives us a few minutes to make evidence-based decisions. That's our job as clinicians, is always using those evidence. Sometimes we don't need a radiograph. You know, if we have a bone sticking out of a leg or a severe angle change, we can make that definitive diagnosis without a diagnostic, but we have radiographs here. So anytime we can possibly see if they have a chance, we want to see if they have that chance.
Last month we had a very critical horse come off the trailer, non-weight bearing on one leg, and I said he's very critical, he's a priority. And some of our viewers didn't realize, like, we put him in a stall just like we did him, and they're like, if he's in pain, why are you just leaving him there?
Yeah,
and
he had pain meds.
He had pain meds right away. So
I'm just sneaky with the pain meds, and I don't always stop and make sure
and
it's on film,
sometimes we're not.
I know,
we're not able to pause and explain everything, but the reason sometimes, like, we put them in here is sometimes it's the first time in their last year or 2 years that they're actually pain-free from the pain medicine. So bringing a horse in that's extremely critical into the stall with pain meds, water and food is kind of the first time they're able to find peace. So we're not putting critical horses in here and walking away and they're suffering. They're under vet care with drugs to make them comfortable. You feeling a little better? Huh?
Hi. That's a good boy. I'm gonna give you a little bit more drugs, okay? So we're gonna take radiographs of his right hind leg. You can see how much better he's standing after getting that Banamine. I'm gonna give him some Dormocidin because I'm afraid that leg is painful and we don't want anybody to get kicked getting these radiographs. So I'm gonna give him a little bit of a sedative. I'm just waiting for somebody to come hold for me. I think so, yeah.
Are you bad for pokies?
He was not terrible earlier, but I think he feels a little better now.
Good job.
Make him more comfortable.
Am I distracting you? Which way?
Thank you. Yeah, this horse is painful enough that we want to move him as little as possible. So we're going to try to take his radiographs in the stall, which is another reason why we sedated him. At least 20, but abnormal dental wear, so SE559.
That should be a 5. It
559.
should only have one letter.
5E559?
Yeah.
Okay, Dr. Gina, will you get the generator set kind of from back here to try to shoot down, kind of aiming right here. And when you're in place, I'm gonna tuck up underneath. It's gonna be a tough one from a muscle standpoint. I'm gonna just
Very nice.
move down here touching him. Don't kick. Okay. It's higher. Okay. Okay.
That seems really far.
We have gas, right? Ready?
Swishy.
Okay, you can pull out. It's not the best quality image, but this is our femur, and you can see right here, this part of the bone should be smooth, and we've got a fracture line running right up here. So this is consistent with an avulsion fracture where a soft tissue structure pulls a piece off the bone. We weren't able to get higher up. We may have a worse fracture higher up, but we're tucked up underneath his inguinal area as close as our plate can go safely. But we do have evidence of a catastrophic fracture, probably also with a severe soft tissue component. Unfortunately, in shelter medicine, if this were an owned animal, we would probably sedate him really, really heavily to get a better idea. But the outcome would be the same if you have a fractured leg. So we just finished taking radiographs on this sweet boy. We did have to sedate him a little bit, and I suspect he may have a more severe fracture higher up in his leg, but what we found was that he's got some swelling and some abnormalities associated with the stifle joint, and the two major bones aligned in this joint are separated from one another and not lined up correctly. So we know that that's abnormal. That indicates a soft tissue injury. We also see evidence of an avulsion fracture, kind of right here. The tendons and ligaments can get ripped so severely that they pull a piece of bone off. This one is pretty severe. It looks like it's about 1 centimeter in. Based on just that would be catastrophic enough of a fracture, but the way this horse dangles his leg and has it flop medially makes me concerned that we have a full soft tissue tear. So we're not just dealing with a fracture, we're dealing with a catastrophic soft tissue injury of this leg. And even with Banamine and sedation on board, he still is just barely toe touching. So he's not bearing any weight on this leg, even with good drugs on board. So unfortunately for this guy, I think based on the bony remodeling and the degree of atrophy of this limb and hypertrophy of this limb, looks like it was going on for at least 6 weeks, maybe longer, which is just really heartbreaking for this guy. His heart rate was in the upper 80s when he came in, so he was very, very painful. Thankfully, he did respond well to those pain medications, but he's been painful for at least a month and a half, if not longer. So really unacceptable. Poor buddy. Our vet team wanted to tell you guys a little bit more about Nighthawk. So the femur is the really big, dense bone in the upper part of the leg. And an avulsion fracture basically means the soft tissue structure that's attached to that bone is catastrophically ripped off that bone. And there are different types. You can have a little tiny green stick. In Nighthawk's case, his fracture was pretty catastrophic of that main weight-bearing bone. We weren't able to radiograph the pelvis. And so what I suspected from the way he was walking and moving was that he not only had a femoral fracture, but that he also had a pelvic fracture. And in his case, it wasn't fair to him to try to do more, but also our radiograph equipment is limited in the amount of power that it has. And that's not because we don't have great equipment, it's just because of the size of horses. A horse pelvis is extremely hard to image. So not only did he have the femoral fracture, he had catastrophic soft tissue tearing, kind of like a human ACL, only humans have a lot more ability to compensate. Horses with fractures and soft tissue injuries literally don't have a good leg to stand on, and they have usually failure of the support limb before they can have healing. But also, even with both types of pain and sedative medications we gave him, his heart rate stayed elevated, and so we knew even temporarily we wouldn't be able to control his pain. It just wasn't fair to him. So he was given the last act of kindness, and he passed very peacefully. And as heartbreaking as it is to lose them, I'm so grateful that he didn't end up in a trailer for days and days and going through the slaughter process.